My name's Pat Brown. I'm a lawyer and also the software developer who built Codepact. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can get a pretty sophisticated software development agreement done in less than 10 minutes. I'll also show you a few things about the system. So the first part of a document is where we set out the factual commercial context that will actually trigger many of the decisions in the document sections without our intervention. And that's because we've programmed a lot of the documents in such a way that they respond to characteristics of the commercial environment that they're being used in. So, first example, who has the advantage here? Are we going to create an agreement that is even for both sides, or is it going to be slanted in one direction or another? We have a spectrum of positions here. So we're going to go with what's best for the developer, because in this case, let's act as the developer. Now, as I go through and fill out these other questions, these are all contributing to the commercial context of the document, and this is going to make the amount of work that we need to do much less. So this is the primary agreement interface, and what you're going to see are a few sections. We can go back and see what commercial context characteristics we specified. We can take a look at a checklist. Now, the good thing about this checklist is that as we go through and make more selections in this document, the checklist compiles any other items that need to be added to it in order for us to implement the agreement. So the basic idea is that you make all the selections in the document and then you want to complete the checklist items before you actually sign the document. So the easiest way to get rolling here is to just hit the next step button, which is going to take us to the first topic with some gaps for us to fill in. So in this case, we're dealing with intellectual property. Obviously, with the agreement being best for us as the developer, we're going to own all of the intellectual property, but we're going to license it back to the customer. Now, just for your information, when you want to click on a defined term, it's going to show you all of the legalese and facts behind those defined terms. It's a hell of a lot easier than flipping to the end of a document. That's a nice little interface tweak that we've added. So when we look at the restricted license that we're going to provide the counterparty over the background intellectual property that we bring to the context of this agreement, we're going to just open up the modal and answer these questions. So we'd like them to only use our intellectual property that we bring to this deal as part of the service we provide them in Australia only. And we'd like to limit by date when they can use our intellectual property until. So it's not forever, basically. So let's just make it 21st of March 2021. Now, we also want to restrict it by purpose. So basically you can say, well, we'd like you to use the intellectual property that we license to you for purpose A, but not purpose B. So let's just say for a particular venture. Now, we're not going to have additional expansions in the interest of time. And when we hit next step, we're going to end up at confidentiality. Now, obviously, as the developer, we have obligations to the customer around keeping confidential information confidential. Now, we use a law patch position for this. You can see our other videos about how law patch works, but what it basically does is it incorporates all of the detailed provisions around confidentiality into the agreement without it being on the top layer of the agreement. It's behind a defined term. So if we fill out these other options, you're going to notice that what we're actually doing here is answering relatively simple questions, but we're answering them and the agreement is populating with legal drafting that takes care of our commercial interests. And so by just filling out those blanks with the information that we provide in response to the questions, you've actually drafted what amounts to being a very robust confidentiality clause. So if we hit next step again, going to end up at agreement creation. Let's just choose the simple options here so that we can keep moving and I can weigh in under 10 minutes. Now we're at the necessary bureaucracy section. That's the bit of the document where you basically have all the miscellaneous provisions around the administration of the agreement. And in this case, we're going to choose the governing law state, i.e. the state that we end up using the laws for to govern this contract and also litigate in if there's ever an argument, as New South Wales. This is an Australian contract, but obviously we have UK contracts and US contracts on the system of Codepact as well. So when we hit next step, what we end up at now is the definition section. So we can fill in the details here, and they tend to be a bit more particular to the deal that is before us. And so we're going to just fill these out. Now, a rolling term is a renewing agreement, and we want an agreement that renews every 3 months. And the work specification is where we describe actually what we're building for people. And so we can fill this in. And what we end up with is a pretty clear explanation of what the work specification document is, so there's no confusion that causes arguments later on. So now, because the rest of the document is finished, it's time to fill in the party details. And this is the section where we enter them. I'm going to just enter a few junk details here to get us past this section so I can show you how the signing system works. Okay, so now we're going to go to the customer and fill in Okay, so because we've completed the entire document now, we hit Preview Signing Document, and we can see what the execution version of the document is going to look like. So we can scroll through the document, look at all the previous provisions that we completed. Of course, we can still click on definitions to see what they mean. And then we're going to sign the document from our end. And then we're going to invite the other side to sign the document on their end. Now basically, this document signing will be completed when the other side signs their side, and this has been a very sophisticated software development agreement completed all in the space of less than 10 minutes.